I've been promising you guys a synopsis video to wrap up this story about what happened in Surfside. I'm sorry it's taken this long. Thank you for your patience. There are a lot of pieces of evidence that we have to cover today, and hopefully by the time I'm done, everyone will have a very clear picture in their mind of the reality of what occurred in Florida. On 24 June 2021, early in the morning, Fox News began running this loop of a building that had collapsed, supposedly now due to poor maintenance. And they kept running the loop over and over again, but when you looked at it closely, you could see things that didn't make sense to just poor maintenance. Buildings like this, especially ones right on the Atlantic Ocean, designed to withstand Category 5 hurricanes, just don't collapse into their own footprint because of some water in the basement. Now that's just logic. That's just common sense. So this bore some looking into. Because usually, when you go back, historically, go 30, 40, 50 years, the first year of a new president, there's an attack. Whether it's Biden, Trump, Obama, each one of his 4-year terms, Bush, both of his, even Clinton going back. We went back 25 years in a video and showed this. So this was right in line with historical events. I have circled here the flashes that can't be explained. They say it's electrical. No one buys that at this point, especially others that have occurred in parts of the building that didn't come down. No one's asking that question either. So the first question you'd have to ask, who would do such a thing? Who would bomb a building? And who would bomb a building on 24, 25 June? Well, pretty clear. A sleeper cell that had been in this country for God knows how long, probably came across the southern border at some point, found themselves in possession of access to engineering materials. Now, these guys are designed to operate independent of official Hezbollah in the Middle East. Their whole strategy, much like the Maquis, was to come here, assimilate into society, be law-abiding citizens, and wait for a target of opportunity. Many have tried to focus on the building or who was in the building. It was a target of opportunity. There were a lot of Jewish people in the building. There was apparently some maintenance issues. And given what we know about COVID now, there was probably the ability to walk around fully masked, pretending to be building inspectors, and case the place. It was a target of opportunity. 25 years ago, they did the same thing, except it was a truck bomb, and it was in Saudi Arabia, and they went after the U.S. Marines, enforcing a no-fly zone in southern Iraq after the first Gulf War. To the day, 25 years, and here's the article from af.mil. I was actually going to do a video about this when that occurred. So I thought, this really can't be a coincidence, but let's look at all of the evidence. Is there anything else that happened on 24 or 25 June historically that we can tie to this? Well, of course, 2 years ago, Trump levels sanctions against Iran with a warning. Official date of the implementation, 24 June 2019. So 2 years to the day for this, and 25 years to the day for this. Plus, with what we saw with our own eyes, I think we can start to see a pattern here. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, many, many years ago, they did the same thing in Argentina. They took out a building. Why did they bomb the Israeli-Argentine Mutual Friendship building? Very clear. Because Argentina decided to go back on a deal for nuclear technology transfer. Basically, Argentina and Iran had a nuclear agreement, a nuclear deal, and they left it. Argentina left it. Same thing Trump did. So now we have two correlating world events on top of two other attack events. Now, on top of that, someone on the ground said they heard, and I'm quoting Julian Targowski here, who was being interviewed by KPIX CBS, a low boom, boom, boom. He was out in the region. Said he sounded like a bass, a very, very deep, thumpy bass. Well, everyone who's ever watched any of these buildings being imploded, especially in person, knows that you not only hear it, you feel it. That boom, boom, boom. That shockwave. So now we have a witness on the ground. 3 days later. 3 days later, we have F-15s and F-16s in the air hitting Iranian positions on the Iraq border. President Joe Biden, the guy who's been known to denigrate the previous president for getting out of the Iran deal, wanting to get back into it, hoping to get back into it, saying we need to get back into it, trying to court Iran, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, decides to launch on Iran for no other apparent reason. So now we're starting to see things come into focus. And then the lies. The lies out of the mainstream media. CNN reports someone on the 4th floor of the condo on a phone call with her husband who was in D.C. said that she saw the pool collapse into a sinkhole. She saw the swimming pool collapse into a sinkhole. Next day, next morning, aerial pictures. Pool still holding water. Still perfectly fine. No sinkhole. So now we know they're making up a narrative immediately. Why would they need to lie? Why would they need to lie? And as if that wasn't bad enough, their story about poor maintenance or building, they started to run out the idea of building design flaws before they realized there were analog buildings 2 blocks away that were perfectly fine, built at the same time, by the same contractors, using the same methods, using the same materials, perfectly fine. These residents even said, hey, if your story is correct, shouldn't we be evacuating? And the mainstream media realized they fucked up. So, of course, they had to send Biden down here within 7 days. The federal government says they're going to pay for 100% of all of the costs for the first 30 days, unheard of, especially in a state-local issue. The rest of the building seems strangely in good condition for one that was suffering from quote-unquote poor maintenance, and even close-up pictures show this. The building sheared off on one side. They talked about dilapidated walls, falling down ceilings, even in the parts that we can see here. Other than the damage done from the collapse, it doesn't seem like that's the case. Oh, and let's not forget, the global leader, the one organization in the world that could identify Hezbollah tactics and training on the ground in Florida, 48 hours. On the ground here. Forget the idea that the families and the loved ones were losing their minds saying, hey, wait a minute. Why are you taking so long? Why is this taking so long? Why are you moving so gingerly through this pile? Could there have been unexploded ordnance down there? Well, they took care of that story. They went in and put in their own ordnance and blew the building. Blew the building, even though 3 days earlier the IDF had said that they thought people were still alive down there. Because they can't have witnesses. Because they can't have witnesses coming out and saying, wait a minute, there were problems, but I heard explosions before. I heard explosions, especially those in the lower floors. They can't have the real story coming out. They can't have the real story coming out, and I'm sure this is why Biden got involved, because if these cats came across that southern border at some point, and I haven't even covered the idea yet of the guys picked up in New York. We had guys picked up in New York within a week. Within a week, with some strange baloney story about gas cans and coming from 60 miles away in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, supposedly pulled over in Wakefield, Massachusetts, regassing their cars. Baloney. It's crap. It was Iranian terrorism. This was Hezbollah. We had a sleeper cell in this country, probably came across the southern border at some point, who knows when, saw a target of opportunity, used the COVID restrictions, the masking and all that, to hide their activities, and they bombed a building. That's what happened. And that's just the facts. If this was a civil court case, I'd win. If this was a civil court case, it would be a slam dunk, because they have nothing to back up their story. They've run out some other tower 2.5 miles inland where some guy said it was unsafe for habitation, piece of paper taking a picture of, no actual real documentation. But that even proves the point, doesn't it? That even if there was a problem, he rated the building fair, not poor. He rated it the middle rating. And of course, they went through the dog and pony show of evacuating the building. They're going to put him back in. It's not going to make CNN's headlines when they do. They're going to try to turn the page. The July 4th holiday was something that they definitely used to do that. CBS was in Florida for over a year trying to dig up dirt on DeSantis, and they totally missed the story. Even their make-believe narrative story about the poor maintenance in the building. Don't you think if CBS was down here for a year trying to dig up any story they could on DeSantis, they would have somehow come across this story if it were really true about poor maintenance, possibly causing the collapse of a building? I mean, the proof on this is endless. It's literally endless. So, anyway, I will leave it there, but you can go through point by point by point by point by point that we just covered with anybody who wants to debate this with you. And you can show them the evidence, show them the videos that we've done. Even if they don't believe the flashes, the date correlations are just too much of a quote-unquote coincidence. The launching on Iran, the picking up of the guys in New York, the lies from CNN, the EMEA bombing, IDF on the ground from halfway across the world? No, sorry. But anyway, everyone who's been here, everyone who signed up, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. God bless, and there will be more content, because I'm sure as the weeks and months go on, there's going to be more things, not only dealing with this, but others that are probably going to be too controversial for YouTube. So hang in there. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon.